Welcome back to How Should I Introduce You? This is the latest installment, and I am here with two good friends of mine, Steven Marcus and KJ Hughes. And I want to welcome the both of you to this installment of How Should I Introduce You?
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I typically do is I will ask the guests that I invite on to provide me with basically a statement of how they want to be introduced. So I'll start with Steven. And Steven kept it really simple, man. Black man with his shoes tied tight, highly grateful, but not satisfied, enjoying the moment, but still plotting. Steven, welcome to the installment of How Should I Introduce You?
Thank you. Thank you, Silas. It's great to be here. And thanks for having me. And KJ, nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you too, Steve.
All right. So KJ Hughes, man, passionate about entrepreneurship, economic empowerment through teaching entrepreneurship principles like personal brand awareness and networking. My brother KJ, man, thank you for being here.
Appreciate you, Deacon. Appreciate you.
Hey. So listen, man, I want to get started, man, with some of the elements of your bios that you guys sent over to me. So you guys sent me like those concise statements, but you also sent me, a more formal version of your bios as well, which I won't get into in terms of like all of it, but you guys have seen each other's information. So I was glad to be able to do that. But one thing, KJ, you talked about offline was this concept of abundance not being greed, right? And, I know that, Steven, you also mentioned that you're highly grateful but not satisfied. So I feel like those statements are kind of married to some degree. And I was telling a really good friend of mine earlier this week, I feel like despite all of this, 2020 has been the best year for me, right? And I'm careful not to be in this state of excitement about it, knowing that so many people suffered during this year, right? But again, having abundance is not greed. So KJ, talk a little bit about like how you came to that point where you realized that that was a statement that you live by.
Growing up, it took me, a little while to get to a point of, kind of sustained success. And I think for us, especially, of course, we as Black men, right, we attain a certain level of success, and then we have this kind of insecurity of, how much do I really tell? What do I show? Is it in jeopardy of being taken away from me? Is it boastful? And I know personally I go through this. And I think that's where I started to really dig in and talk to my circle. And it's like, you know what? When you've worked hard with kind of a foot on your back and you've sustained a certain level or attained a certain level of success, it's okay to keep going. It's okay to not be satisfied. It's okay to keep trying to, in essence, run the score up, right? And because we're starting with such a negative kind of equity, right, from slavery and all these different things, it's like when you actually get it, we need to run the score up because we got a lot to make up for. And I think some people kind of stick and stay at this kind of sustained level of success where they stop reaching, they stop striving, they stop learning, and they're kind of just like, hey, I made it. But the idea of abundance to me is something that we all should be kind of striving for. One, to be able to leave a legacy for, whoever we might be looking toward, or, to be able to make sure that we, are able to reach past the points that we've already attained.
How about you, Steven? You talked a little bit about, being grateful but not satisfied.
Yeah. To echo a lot of KJ's points, man, I think there was a time that I realized in some of just advocacy work that in these, I'm not going to name them, but civil rights organizations, you see that there's a hierarchy that exists And a lot of folks that are in positions are just now seeing a lot of the fruits of the labor that have been taking place over the years. And you wonder, as a young professional, and seeing that there's a generational gap and sort of at times miscommunication because of that generational gap, sort of butting heads, and you wonder what that's like or what that's for. I've realized that a lot of folks are getting to a point where they're just now seeing and having the ability to make decisions and be autonomous in those decisions for the work that they put in. So it was a humbling experience for me as a 29, 30-year-old at the time, to be put back into a position or a place. And I don't mean that in a negative sense, but to understand the role and to understand what being grateful and humbled in your situation and the sort of the work that you are able to provide and help the assistance that you're able to provide, but also to see that there's a larger goal in the end. I see, or I think far too often, folks try to recreate the wheel. When you get far enough to where your recreation of that wheel has gotten you to a certain point, but then you get stuck. And to KJ's point, you've reached that level of success. How you push on? Someone once said that recreating the wheel is the issue. Don't recreate the wheel. Learn how the wheel works, because it's been working for the folks that use it right properly, and apply whatever method or whatever it is that you're in search of to that wheel, and you'll learn how to get beyond that point that you're at. So I'm grateful in the sense that I've learned from those that have put in the work, and I'm not satisfied because I'm realizing that there's a will that exists that gives opportunity to everybody, and I want to learn that will and apply it.
Yeah. So tell me about your shoes being tied tight.
Man, cuz listen, I'm coming for the things that folks said that we couldn't have, right? I'm coming for the things that are supposedly out of reach for our generation, for our race, for our kids, for what was out of reach for our parents, our grandparents. I just feel like there is a responsibility that I have to sort of run the race alongside of folks, right? Folks say there's a saying or question of, do you outrun the people that you're in a forest with, or do you outrun the bear? And a lot of the times you think about that in different situations. And at times you want to say outrun the bear because you ain't trying to die. But if you outrun the people in the forest too, chances are you still will get out of the forest and you'll be ahead of some of those folks. So that all ties back to the old saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And we recognize that that those bootstraps aren't the same for everybody. And sometimes those bootstraps for our counterparts come with a level of access and a level of resources that we don't have. So it's from an interview with Roland Martin. He was talking to the alt-right guy. He said, you need to tie your shoes because we coming for you. So I took that and sort of I have been sort of living by that, that I have my shoes tight.
Yeah. So one of the things that you talked about was outrunning the bear, but also outrunning people, right? And both of you have had like a really large amount of success. And, you know, the thing that KJ mentioned early on was about, you know, not being embarrassed about your success. And people will try to nudge you in the ribs and make jokes about your success, or you think you're better than everybody, or, you know, you got that nice house in this new area, or whatever the case may be. How have you all been able to manage those relationships that are foundational to you, but yet, you know, you may be finding yourself a little more motivated than those that you're in relationships with? and you're trying to maybe inspire them through being the example, but at the same time, you understand the severity of the bear and you're outrunning the people. Like, how do you manage that?
For me, I think it goes back to, a true leadership principle, which is you got to meet people where they are, right? And try to bring them to a point and guide them where, you think you see them, or where, you guys are trying to go, right? And so the best thing that I do in that is I try to make sure that my friends can experience some of the things that I experience, right? I literally live by it ain't no fun if the homies can't have none, and I don't mean that in a way of giving or doing for them. I just try to make sure that they have a seat at the table, or in rooms that I know that it took me a long time to get into. The friends that I know who aspire to be and who are putting the work in to make sure that when their opportunity comes, that they have done the work and that they have the credential, or that they, know the thing, or are becoming an expert at something. I try to make sure that those friends, even before they're really quote unquote ready, I try to make sure that they are the ones who I invite to the Redskins suite with the president, or I bring along to a trip overseas, or we go to a game and sit on the floor, or he's my plus one at a networking event. Even when like I said, they might not necessarily be ready. The point being, and I don't think I got this opportunity either, is sometimes because we don't know what the room looks like, we can never really prepare for the room, right? So when you ask about how do I don't think that I definitely am not good at the friends, or the circle who has no motivation at all, right? I'm just not good at that. And there have been friends who I've seen something in them that they didn't necessarily see in themselves. So what I did was, the one caveat that I started to kind of, the asterisk is, they have to be doing the work on their own for me to say, okay, the door may not be there and it might not be an opportunity that I can put you in right now, but I know that you're doing the parallel work, so that if and when an opportunity comes, or one of my contacts says, hey, Kay, anybody that does this, I know that these people are doing the work, and now the rubber meets the road, right? Now the opportunity is there, but the work has already been done. So that's the biggest advice I give to my friends that are kind of coming up and who are pivoting from one job to the next, is you got to stay ready. If you stay ready, you don't never got to get ready, right? So in that down period of an economy, go finish up that degree, go maybe get an extra degree, or take a certification, or do the learning and do the growing during the period, so that when the harvest comes, you're in a place to really see it, right? And so that's kind of the advice that I've given to all of my friends, is never stop planting, and therefore when the rain comes and the harvest is ready, you're gonna be ripe for the picking.
No, I think the doing the work piece is extremely important, and that's something that we don't. I think we say it a lot, right? And it becomes cliche, but it's not often really expressed in a way where people that need to do the work understand that there is work that has to be done. It takes time. It may not take forever, but it's going to take some devoted time to get that done.
My bad, Si. Let me add one more thing. So,
yeah,
and I think it's important to say is, a lot of times people think opportunity comes first and then you do the work, right? And that is and I think that's something that I have even been I have even done that, right? Early on in the 20s, it's like, damn, if you would have gave me that shot, I could have killed it too. Or if I was, so-and-so next to so-and-so, I could have did that too. Or, if you put me in that room, shit, I would have did that, and I probably would have did more.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't. I wasn't there. I didn't have the credentials. I didn't have the knowledge, the resources, or anything to be able to get into the position and hit the ground running. So you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. You think that when the opportunity comes, that's all of a sudden when you're going to get the battery in your back and do a good job, right? No, you got to do the work prior to, so that when the opportunity comes, it meets the preparation that you've already done to get to this point. And I think to Steve's point, that's kind of where we are at this stage. It's like some of that work that we put in our 20s and early 30s. I'm not sure how old you are, Steve, but you're seeing that harvest now, and it take a minute. You know, it took me probably 7 years to really get to a sustained period of success monetarily, where, you know, I would beat myself over the head like, damn, I made just one better decision. Or if I would have, you know, turned left sooner, I would have got to this, you know, account or this client or what have you. But ultimately, all of those experiences collectively put you in a place to when the true opportunity is yours, you're going to hit it, and you're going to hit it out the park.
Yeah, I think really quickly, just to piggyback on that, Silas, one of the major things is what you're doing right now. You're making connections with folks that have the experience that can sort of talk and discuss back and forth about what their experiences were. And part of that in our community is just, which lacks a lot, is having those mentors and those folks that may not be part of your circle, but are part of the group that sort of align you and prepare you for these opportunities that KJ was talking about. Part of it also that I see, and I don't got the floor seats to the games. I ain't got the presidential suite to see the Washington Football Club. I'm a Bears fan, by the way, for the record. But the difference is that sometimes you recognize that you are standing in the intersection of folks' opportunities and sort of their dreams, and their fears and their sort of doubting themselves, and you're that one that's able to pull them along and show them that you have the resources, you have the skill set. It's just time to put that preparation in, like KJ was saying, so that when the opportunity comes, you can be prepared to jump on it. I think one other point, and this is where I find myself in a lot of situations, and a lot of the work that I've done, is when a door opens for me, I find it easier to pull somebody through that door along with me. And those are the opportunities that I have that I'm able to present to the folks that are in my circle that sort of need that pull. But the folks that whatever it is that they do, that I know, everybody is hustling, and everybody has a grind to them, and for them. I think a lot of the stuff that I said again, with pulling folks through the door, in addition to that, is making the connections like you're doing right now, Silas. I probably connect folks a few times a week, and it's just I see sort of opportunities and connections between certain folks, and I say that this would be good for you all to meet. And I'm good at making introductions, man. But I do that and I pull out. I allow them to sort of manage that relationship from there on. So I'm not that in between person for them, but that's how I approach it.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that I'm trying to grow in, is really trying to shepherd the relationship as much as possible, right? Because sometimes you make an introduction and, you know, things may go well and you say, man, I wish I would have walked with them in that process because I might have been able to benefit long term from it. Or if it doesn't go well, you know, you may be able to manage it to make it kind of steer back in the clear path. So that's kind of my personal commitment for the remainder of this year and moving forward, is just trying to be more intentional, not just about the connection, but also just keeping tabs on where it's going. And if it can be something big, then trying to be a part of that too.
So let me connect. I'm gonna connect this back to the whole, you know, abundance is not greed, right? the more Black people that we see in leadership, the better our chances are of connecting and not feeling insecure of that connection having to go well, right? The more people that are like us and that look like us and understand the background and the plight that we come from, the more opportunities we can lay out, and we don't have to guarantee the success of that opportunity. You know, I'll admit that that's probably an insecurity of mine, is when you said, and I try to do this as well. And as I get a lot more, get into positions of leadership, I do try to bring along, if I bust the door down, I'm not trying to be the only one. I made reference to this a few times in different circles where we get into some of these rooms and we're so excited to be the only one that, you miss the opportunity to be able to really bring some folks on, because they're celebrating you as the only one. Oh, he's the first Black owned so-and-so, and he's the youngest Black so-and-so. And they try to put this, this misnomer in our heads that being the only is the best. And that's not the truth, right? So this is where this whole abundance thing comes from, is the higher we reach and the more we have, the more we're able to then give, and the more opportunities we're allowed to really, expose folks to. So that's where that abundance piece fits in for me, is, the more we attain, the more leadership, the more influence, the more affluence, the more I believe we're able to then open up more opportunities for people that look like us, for our circles, for, our families, for our kids, etc.
Man. You, KJ, talked a little bit about personal brand awareness, right? And in my interactions with you over a number of years, you do a good job, and you mentioned it a bit earlier, but you do a good job of identifying in other people their maximum potential, right? And, I think that ties back into personal brand awareness. Or let me ask you this, what would you say to someone who would say, hey, I'm not aware of my brand, or, I'm not really self-aware. I don't really know my talents. I don't see value in myself. What would you say to someone that is maybe challenged in that area?
First, I would tell them to, really dig in and figure out, what do they love, right? And I think this is a part of this entire exercise of how do I introduce you, right? I think becoming an expert in something is probably the best thing you can do for your personal brand, right? Have a thing. I don't care what it is. If you remember you growing up, it's like you would call that one homie, he's super fast. Right? Oh, I bet you could beat me in a race. I bet you can't beat so-and-so, right? It's like you find that thing that you're really, really good at, or that you love to do and you're willing to do for free or passionate. Your wife is a baker. Sorry for the background noise. Your wife bakes, right? She loves to bake. That's something that could then be expounded upon from a brand, right? That's something that I can introduce someone to and say, hey, I know my homegirl Val makes these bomb cakes. Who knows where that could take it, right? Who knows? And so when you start talking about a personal brand, I'm talking about something that you're willing to plant and water and water and water and water and water and water. I mean, over the course of a lifetime, right? That personal brand and even how I get into some rooms, I could tell you some wild stories of the intentionality of me taking a trip, using my last dimes to go and be in a room to possibly bump into someone. All of this intentional. Actually accomplish that, bump into somebody that knows that person, and then leading to a check 7 or 10 years later. Literally, I can speak to it like an example right now. So when I think about personal brand, I think you got to figure out what are the 1 or 2 or 3 things that you really, really love to do. And that if someone gave you an opportunity to do it for free or to pay you, that you would be overjoyed. Like, you got teachers that are like, oh, I would love to just stay home and cook. right? So that's kind of where I see personal branding. First off is find the thing that you love. And then second thing, nurture it. Any little time that you have off, an hour, read a book on it, watch a YouTube on it, take a class on it, get a certification in it, even if it's outside of what's paying you right now, even if it's totally contrary to your job or your, whatever it may be, right? But you gotta water that thing, and I truly believe in my heart of hearts that thing will eventually be the thing that becomes your brand and that you could potentially, make some money on long term. But it's again identifying it, planting it, and watering it through resources.
Yeah. That's good. That's good stuff, man. I've worked with the both of you on, a variety of things, right? And the one thing I see, which is why I wanted to make this introduction, the one thing I see from the both of you is that when you guys are in work mode, you just jump in. Like, forget the title, forget who I know, forget what sort of clothes I got on. Like, Steven, you and I, man, I mean, we've done things together where you got to roll your sleeves up and just do pretty much anything to make the situation happen. And KJ, you and I have been in those moments as well. But Steven, talk a little bit about, you talked about coming into the room, grabbing somebody, walking through the door, there's an opportunity. There are a lot of people who procrastinate, a lot of people who, don't seize the moment. But you seem to do that every time I observe you. Like, what is it in you that drives you to be that way?
Oh, that's a tough question, man, because I do procrastinate.
Well, I've not seen it. I see you jump right in every time I witness what you're doing. So,
I listen. It's always been for me, and this is just in general the way my life has been set up. When I'm against the wall, when my back is against the wall, I respond, and I look at those situations where there's a solution to be made or to be had in these moments, right? And it allows me to sort of look back at myself as if my back was against the wall and respond. There's no magic juice for me or that I take. I think it's literally just my personality. I'm probably more interested in responding or learning in the moment than typically about things that I already know. So I'm curious about learning things that typically aren't my day-to-day, and that sort of fuels a lot of my response to situations, man. But again, just kind of tying this back to what's that one thing KJ said, that's sort of difficult sometimes for folks to answer, in a sense of if you had the opportunity to find that one thing and get paid for it, one, how often does that happen in a lot of situations, right? How often are people working 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are, doing the things they truly love? That's sort of difficult sometimes for people in situations, especially now when the economy is a little bit different, and you have to make a means to put food on the table to handle your business. But it's also interesting. It provides opportunity for folks to sort of explore things that could sort of work out for them. In my situation, everybody knows this, that I'm from Gary, Indiana. And I moved here 2 years ago, and it was just an opportunity that sort of presented itself, which is where you and I met, Silas. And that was a moment for me to sort of, that I understood. That was a moment for me to meet the people. That was a moment for me to understand sort of the movement of things in the DC, DMV area. And that sort of goes with what I love to do, or what I love sort of focus on as myself as a professional, which is leveraging relationships. I've leveraged relationships as far back as I can remember. I'm a relationship person. I love to meet everybody. I love to, I'll walk up to a stranger and that'll be my best friend. That's just who I am. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to monetize that the way that I want to monetize it. KJ, if you got some ideas, I'd love to talk to you about that. But it ties back to that, man. The opportunity for me to sort of explore, sort of meet, sort of learn new things. I'm not a reader. I will read, but I'm not a reader. My knowledge comes from talking to other folks that have the experiences, that are able to share those experiences with me. And that's how I sort of apply that to life.
Random question, right? So both of you guys are very ambitious. Both of you guys are, really successful. When's the last time you've been jealous? And you don't have to go through like any specific examples, but if you have to be vague, but have you seen something that has happened to someone else or for someone else? And how did that make you feel? And how did you manage that? How did you walk through that process? When's the last time something happened that really made you either envious or jealous?
That's tough, man. And that's tough. I don't look at it now. It has to be a while ago where the actual feeling was jealousy, or being envious. It's not that I want that thing or whatever that person has. It's not that. It's more of what do I need to do or what am I doing that has not sort of veiled this opportunity or that opportunity for me. And I sort of look at it as a challenge or opportunity for me to sort of find a way to open another door for me. I can't say that it's been a jealousy or an envy thing, man, to be honest though.
Yeah.
I think I'd agree with Steve. I think that you don't get to, where we are as men with any jealousy or envy, right? I think that the word though probably is, I think envy and jealousy, if I could extrapolate the part where I don't want it for that other person, right? I think that's where I'm having trouble connecting, because it's like, I'm not envious or jealous. Like, I'm not looking at that person as if I wish I were them. And I'm not looking at it like I wish that they didn't have the opportunity, right? I'm looking at it more of a place where, and shit, I'll go on the record, for this, because I think it's important. But I look at Rich Paul and, from the business that I've run for 15 years, trying to put myself in positions to have the type of relationship that he has been able to build with LeBron, and to then see how that empire has grown from the time that from a happenstance meeting in an airport over throwback jerseys.
Yeah.
Right? I have been the man next to some world famous talent in my career and have never been able to attain what he's been able to attain. But knowing that when I started this business in 2004, I knew that was the goal, right? I knew that when I transitioned from, a nightclub owner and promoter, and use the relationships that I developed in that industry to then pivot and start providing those people with business advice, I knew that it was my way of getting out of an industry that people looked at like, you pass out flyers? Yeah, I pass out flyers and I make $100,000 a month. So, I mean, but I couldn't go into a bank and get a business loan, right? Because it wasn't your typical, kind of business in the way that we said, I wasn't organized. I was 23 years old. It wasn't organized in a way that I can walk into a bank and get a loan. So, athletes and entertainers was my way of kind of legitimizing what it is that I already did, right? Instead of promoting nightclubs or parties, and managing the affairs of a brick and mortar kind of experience, I said, okay, these are people who are in the public light. You manage them and you promote them and you introduce opportunities to them that grows their brand and grows their influence. Automatically, you can kind of grow this empire and this vertical, right? And so the way that that Rich and Mav and Kelton and Ducky and DJ Meal and this whole little crew, of kind of friends, the way that they've been able to do it has been it's been aspiring, inspiring and aspiring, right? It's not a sense of jealousy or envy. It's more of taking back, taking notes and being around those guys, the times that I've had. The one thing, and it's allowed me to self-reflect, the one thing that I can say about all those people in that kind of LeBron circle, right? Meal, Duck, Randy, Mav, Rich, Kelton, their composure and their tact and what's the word I'm looking for? Poise, right? They all have this kind of, when my time comes, I'm ready, right? I'm doing the work. Kelton is he got a JD. DJ Meal focuses just on DJing, becoming the best DJ as possible. Duck is a designer. Mav handles the business affairs. Rich Paul is your sports agent. He grew that. All of these people took a lane, planted a seed, and as the opportunity grew, they kept watering that seed and they became the best in that lane. And now they are in this world where they're all shooting to the stars. It is the most, like I tell my students at the University of Maryland all the time, like they are a masterclass at how you leverage celebrity to grow enterprises, true vertical enterprise. So to circle back and button it up, it's not envy and it's not jealousy, right? It's more of that shit right there is Black genius. How do I get there? What do I need to do in myself? What changes do I need to make? What books do I need to read? What humility do I need to gain? What this is more of a self-reflection of, damn, they're doing it, and I knew that it was possible to see someone reach it. It's like it gives you that little bit of tick to know that it's possible for you too.
Majority of the time, I'm trying to figure out how I can meet that person or have a conversation with them. Like I'm walking up to them. I'm walking up to them and introduce myself, man.
Yeah, man. You KJ, you talked about taking that celebrity and turning it into enterprise, right? And one of the things you also mentioned was that I think we talked offline where you said Black entrepreneurship can erase the economic and social divide, right? So we're in this period where we're trying to still count up votes for the 2020 election, and in many eyes, people feel like a change of guard will potentially provide us with more opportunities, with less resistance from a racial perspective. But just talk a little bit about, that Black entrepreneurship, erasing that gap, like what that means to you and why you stand on that.
It's simple, man. It's simple economics. Money give you options. It gives you options. And I think the one thing that has systematically been taken for us or barriers have been put up for us is in that thing, making the money, right? We're underpaid. We have less opportunities to get the bigger paid jobs. You don't see Black CEOs. We're not on boards. We're not in any place to be able to create and sustain wealth, right? You got redlining, you got this policy or that policy. And so when I look at that, I say, historically, over my whole 39 years and prior, what has been the linchpin to be able to get through all of their barriers. It has been monetary sustenance, you know? And so I think entrepreneurship is the only way. It's the only way to eventually be able to make enough and to be able to have enough options to where you can hire people. I run a firm that's in all Black employees. It's my choice, right? It's not like I haven't, I put out, job descriptions and we interview everyone. But it just so happens that the culture that we created in our business, the best candidate has turned out to be Black, And so, and even my employees, I empower them to be their own. I mean, that's the best, for me, the best example of a true leader is, did one of your followers come up, right? Did they eventually make some more money or get an opportunity to do some things that you necessarily couldn't provide for them? And I have, 3 or 4 examples of that, where guys have left, went on to do their own thing and killing it because of skills that I helped nurture and because of relationships and doors that I helped open. And to me, that's the network. That's what this conversation here has to lead to. Steve, I want to come to your baby shower. I want to come to your wedding, all of those things, but I want to make some money together. That's the goal. That should be the goal for us as Black men. That should be the goal for us as Black families, is how do we get together and lower the barriers of us being able to reach and attain and sustain economic success.
And how do you close the wealth gap? KJ, I got a quick question for you. When you're talking about those resources and that access, what is it that you would say is that key component that would sort of just knock the walls down and provide what it is that we need to sort of close the wealth gap for Black entrepreneurs? Is it access to resources, access to mentoring, access to rooms or boards? What is it that you think we need access to?
Access to the rules, access to writing the rules, the thing that y'all do, the access to creating the rules of the game. Like, that is what we need. We don't need access to this piece or that piece or this piece or that piece. We need access to be able to rewrite the rules of the game. The game is rigged. It's been rigged. And the only way that we get through that is by buying our way to the top of the table to say, look, I'm the most successful in the game. Oprah and Bob Johnson and this person, this Michael Jordan, and I'm LeBron, who was actually doing it, right? I'm the most successful in the game. I get to write the rules now. I get to be a contributor to the rules. Jay-Z, right? Shout out to old Jews and old rules. I get to be the person at the top saying what we can and cannot have access to now. That's it. So government, policy, what Silas does, what you do, Tony Lewis, like, let us be a part of making the rules. And eventually, maybe not in my lifetime, I'm not naive. It might not be in the next 50 years, but eventually, if we keep earning and growing and passing it down, eventually we're gonna have enough people with enough sustained success and money and power to be able to say, all right, y'all can't keep just dictating to us what we can and cannot do, what we can and cannot have. We coming for it all.
I never thought about it that way with respect to, you hear people say make the rules, right, or have influence on the rules, but I think when you just said that in that moment, it shifted my thought a bit from where it was to where it really should be, and the importance of being in the path of what the rules become, right, and being able to have a say so in that. So I thank you for that, because that was something that you hear people say that, make the rules, change the rules. But, the way you said it in that moment, man, I got to reflect on that this week, because that was really powerful, man.
I agree.
And you got champions in each sector, right? You got people that's trying to change rules in healthcare. You got people that are trying to change rules in criminal justice. You got people trying to change rules in these sectors, right? That's what I'm saying. You guys are, are much more knowledgeable in how the rules are written. And so it's a combination of people like me and the people like you guys who say, okay, let's direct these resources here. We can't change all the rules at one time, right? But let's direct these resources to the rules that are most detrimental to us. And then systematically, the same way they have systematically taken from us, we can systematically change those rules so that the path to economic empowerment and freedom is clear.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that a lot. You also talked a minute ago about like LeBron's team, and you mentioned composure, tact, and poise. And this is for the both of you, because I see that in the both of you. And we're in some times now where the assessment of Black people in generations past was about doing things like the politically correct way, or you had people who now, to some degree, stray away from that, and identity politics and doing things the correct and proper way is not always celebrated. But as we try to navigate these systems, we still, to some degree, have to look the part of the rules as they are today. But then there are those who try to fight to the end not to do any of that, right? So is there a way to balance? Is there a way to balance embracing what is currently the rules and how we should look and show up versus I'm going to go out on a ledge and do things differently, whether it be just through my appearance, through the language I use, like, how much leverage do we have to be ourselves in a society where the rules say that who we are is not enough?
That's interesting. I think there is a level of respect in rule following that exists that still is demanded when it comes to how we grew up, which is your elders, right? You have a respect for your elders in our generation that is unwavering, right? And that you learn growing up that may not necessarily exist in some of the younger generations right now, which is difficult. It's difficult to swallow. It's difficult to understand and to accept. So in that instance, yes, we need to kind of re-instill those sort of rules and laws that sort of govern and have governed us as a community for a while. The other thing is that on the contrary of that, I think far too often we follow the rules when it comes to playing this game economically and what it means to get ahead in the world. We forgive way too easily. We're not willing to sort of play by the rules that are written to advance. We want to turn a cheek when something happens in a business world. We don't. I say that we're passive. We're passive in the work that we do, and that sort of, I think, can stem from a few things. Whether it be concern about access, whether it be concern about resources. But I think if we're going to have a chance, we need to fight the way that the folks that have created those rules, that they're fighting. I don't know who y'all voted for. I see y'all got red on. I came in my blue purposely. But it goes to show, and I think Democrats were, and not to take this there, but I think it's the same thing from that party perspective, that we're far too sort of passive in the way that we do things. There was a Supreme Court justice that was just forced down our throats with an election, a pending election, that polls said was going to go a certain way. So the understanding was we need to get this done. And Democrats 4 years ago had the same opportunity, although the makeup of the legislative branch was a little bit different, had the same opportunity to sort of move on that. And what you saw happen this year are recordings of Republicans saying, if this happens in 4 years or whenever I'm here, play this back and blah, blah, blah. They knew the entire time that if it happened, that they didn't care if they played it back. And I think that sort of relates to, again, from a policy and a legislative perspective, sort of the same way that we approach things as a community far too often, man. Let's take the gloves off. Let's fight the same bare knuckle fight that everybody else is fighting.
Right.
I think that's utopia, man, quite honestly. I think we on such, unstable ground, and that risking it. See, for me, I can say, and Silas and I have had, conversations informally, and I've, made certain, I've alluded to this in different posts, but I know what it's like to have to play the good morning game, right? Because you know that the person on the other side judging you is in control of the check, right? And so, and that is something that hurts. It hurts to know that you cannot show up as your true, authentic self. It hurts to know that the reason why I cut my locks was because I knew that I was transitioning into a world where my opposition or my competition, were white, legacy kids, who had jobs and who had careers because of nepotism. My daddy used to be the coach of so-and-so or this or that, right? And I knew that I'm entering into this world where I'm young, I know nothing about the industry of sports or entertainment, and I'm walking into rooms claiming to represent someone who is looking to them like success, right? As we grow up and we look at business people as white and suited. We look at smart people. The idea of smart is someone that's white and male and suited, right? And you grow up with these images being portrayed on you. And so it's very difficult to then say, risk it all, brother. Take the gloves off and fight the good fight against the system. Your ass gonna end up homeless. And so I think that it goes back to, again, and I'm a straight up and down, and you'll be able to follow the message easily. Abundance creates opportunities for more of us to feel comfortable in our own skin, to be able to show up as our true, authentic selves, to be able to stand up when something is wrong, because it's enough of us fighting it, and we're not on such weak ground. We'll back each other up. We'll stand for one another because we all are in the same exact fight. Until we get to that level, you're going to have people who should be speaking up, not speaking up. You're right. You're going to know, and you're going to have these conversations amongst your friends and amongst your family, like, yeah, that was fucked up. But, we got to keep on getting on because, my daughter got tuition to pay and so on. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's I think what you're saying is not untrue. How do we get people to feel that they are going to be supported when they lay it all on the line? It's easy for you, not you personally, but it's easy for some people to say, hey, I'm gonna put in a couple of days leave and I'm gonna go down and, and raise and put some signs up. But the majority of people don't have that opportunity. They're barbers and nurses or this or that, and they got to take off work to go fight the good cause for what we've seen for years upon years upon years ends up in nothingness, ends up in Donald Trump being elected and more of the same. So you look back and you're like, man, what am I doing this for? I just need to, and this is where they begin to divide and conquer, right? They make us have to just worry about you and your your wife, your kids, and don't worry about nobody else. Don't worry about your brother across the street. Don't worry about, your coworker at work. Don't worry about the young and coming up behind you. Just keep your head down and get to where you are, right? And that's what some of our parents told us. I grew up, my mama told me, and this was the path to success. Don't get nobody pregnant. Don't get in trouble. Get you a good job. That's it. Ain't tell me no in between. Didn't give me nothing in between. Right? So I knew those things, right? I knew police, no. Get me a good job. What that mean? Go work for somebody? You know what I mean? And so, like I said, what you're saying is not untrue. We got to be empowered, though. We got to feel empowered. And that empowerment comes from going to the ATM and that motherfucker receipt being long as CVS. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where it comes from. Empower me to know that I'm good. Even if this don't turn out, I'm good. My chickens is good.
Where's the money? Listen, I want to be clear. I appreciate those points. I really do. And just to clarify that, I agree that what's the old African proverb? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I didn't mean that in the context of individually making these decisions to fight. But what I mean is that there needs to be an agenda. What's the agenda that we have? If you look at what's going on now, Detroit, urban area, saved the presidency for Biden. Philly, you're talking about Milwaukee, you're talking about Atlanta, you're talking about these urban cores that are always showing up. And people are giving a lot of credit right now to Stacey Abrams for the work that she did to make Georgia and put Georgia in the position that they're in now. That's important, but that works through agendas. So when I say take the gloves off, I don't mean go to your boss tomorrow and say what blah blah blah. I mean, where are we in the conversation when it comes to rewriting the rules, KJ, and setting our agenda forth and taking the gloves off and making sure that it's done in a way that fights the way that they're going to fight. They're thinking it's not a 50-year plan. It's not a 10-year plan. It's a 400-year plan. How do we plan for generations, right? Generations on generations. And we got to get beyond right now and look forward to that.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, what I want to do here is kind of land the plane to some degree and really stop and just thank the both of you for being a part of this. And I appreciate this discussion, this conversation. And I've, really been inspired by the conversation. And, individually, again, I've mentioned this earlier in this discussion, but I've worked with you both individually. And I do admire the work ethic and the attention that you both put to tangible success, right? It's one thing to do good, right? But it's another thing to do well. And you guys have both, done well. And I really, really appreciate that. And I think that there are opportunities for so many more people that look like us that are not being maximized because not enough people are doing the work to the extent that they're maximizing. And the two of you both, in my opinion, maximize every opportunity. So you know, I'm trying to be intentional with the words because this is really important at this point that we're in, man. So I appreciate the both of you for not just being on here, but being who you've been, in at least in my eyesight when I've seen the both of you in work. So again, thank you guys for being on. It's my hope that those that are watching this got a lot out of it, you know, at least as much as I got out of it. And I want to continue to do these things to make sure that we build that tribe, that circle that can go out and be successful and have that 400-year impact, as you mentioned, Steve. So thank you guys again.
Silas, I want to say thank you for this opportunity to sit here and talk and meet KJ. You're not just talking the talk, Silas, you're walking the walk. This is action. And this is action that everybody can take. It's simple conversations like this, it's simple ideas that you had, that you grew into where it is now. And I'm sure you have a plan to take it further. So I want to appreciate you and sort of lift you up in this effort that you're doing right now. KJ, it was great meeting you. A pleasure. I can already see now that if I don't come to you with a plan to how to make some money, we ain't gonna get too far. So I'm gonna have a plan for when we talk, but I would love to continue this conversation with you, KJ, and see where it leads.
Good meeting you too, Steve. The good thing about me is it don't gotta make money right away. It just gotta make money eventually, right? Even if it takes us 20 years, we at least gotta be trying to get to something. But no, it's incredible, and I think Silas, you do an incredible job, you know, of connecting, even, you know, beyond the formal. So this was a natural, you know, thing, and this is what I alluded to before. You finding the thing that you really love to do, putting some intention behind it, some resources, and learning it and watering and growing it. You know what I mean? And this is a part of who you are, and this is a part of your brand, you know? And so we've had several, you know, conversations about the entrepreneur bug, and I've, you know, tried to water it, and that's our conversation. So I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud of, you know, the intentions that you make, and you know, I wish for abundance for you and your family, your wife, and I need some of them cookies and cakes over here, man.
I'm gonna make that happen.
Steve, hit me. Connect us, Silas and
yeah.
Steve. Let's chat and figure out how we can you know, keep growing and keep building, man. As Black men, if nothing else, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it. Well, for those who are watching, man, this is another installment of How Should I Introduce You? And this is my experiment of bringing people together who don't know one another. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. So until the next time.